Hunter's laptop all over again. The House Oversight Committee seeks an FBI document alleging Joe Biden took a bribe, and the effort to discredit the claim is already underway. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer subpoenaed a Federal Bureau of Investigation form he says outlines details of a $5 million bribe allegedly paid to Joe Biden while he was vice president. Until last week, the FBI wouldn't even concede the document existed. Nevertheless, this Monday morning an FBI team dispatched by Director Christopher Wray made its way up to Capitol Hill in hopes that Representative Comer would be satisfied with a look-see. He wasn't. After the meeting, he said the FBI told him there is a continuing investigation but reiterated that he still plans to hold Mr. Wray in contempt unless he turns over the document. The response is telling. Mr. Comer, a Kentucky Republican, has been painted as a partisan rube chasing conspiracies. Nobody seems to care that a sitting vice president was accused by a trusted FBI source of taking a bribe. For those who lived through the Hunter Biden laptop saga, it is, as Yogi Berra would say, déjà vu all over again. But after Mr. Comer and Senator Chuck Grassley told Mr. Wray in a phone call last Wednesday that they'd already seen the document, pretending it doesn't exist was no longer an option. Now that the FBI says there's an investigation, there is a campaign to discredit the charges before the public can see them. The first salvo came from CNN last Wednesday. Quoting, "People briefed on the matter, the network said the document had its origins in a tranche of documents that Rudy Giuliani provided to the Justice Department in 2020. This is what Representative Jamie Raskin, the ranking Democrat on the Oversight Committee, is relying on to say the charges have been looked into and there's nothing there." Remember when the New York Post on October 14, 2020, first published some of the incriminating emails from Hunter Biden's laptop? The paper's reporting was not only ignored but also suppressed, with the active assistance of the FBI. In its original story, the Post reported that Hunter Biden's lawyer refused to comment on the specifics but instead attacked Giuliani. Some things never change. The laptop deniers had another key assist from 51 former intelligence officials who, days after the Post story appeared, released a letter claiming that the appearance of the Hunter Biden emails has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. But the disinformation turned out to be the letter, not the laptop. The document at issue now is a Form FD 1023, which the FBI uses to record information from a confidential human source. Critics are right that any allegations are just that, allegations. But given the seriousness of the charge, such an allegation would go up the chain to the FBI director himself, and then to the Attorney General. If this one didn't, the question is, why not? Whatever happened, various FBI or justice officials were making decisions along the way, and they could also be called to testify under oath before too long. After Monday's meeting with the FBI, Mr. Raskin emerged to say that Trump-appointed officials including Attorney General William Barr and U.S. Attorney Scott Brady assessed the allegations against Mr. Biden and agreed not to take the investigation any further. But he didn't say precisely which allegations were assessed, and especially if they were based on the specific information on that FD 1023 from that trusted source. Mr. Comer said the FBI told him the information in the FD 1023 is being used in an ongoing investigation and hasn't been disproved. That's why Messrs. Comer and Grassley don't only want the document. They want to know who did what and why, and to let the public know. If the FBI did its job, it would help itself by clearing up the confusion now. The question now is whether the FBI's resistance is about protecting sources from exposure, as it claims, or about protecting itself from accountability. Also, whether we have two standards of justice, one for people named Biden or Clinton and one for everyone else. Special Counsel John Durham's report suggests there certainly were two standards at the FBI under Mr. Wray's predecessor, James Comey. Mr. Wray has said the abuses were all the actions of a few who are no longer part of the organization. That is a tough sell. For one thing, Americans still wake up to headlines about the FBI labeling Latin mass Catholics as possible terrorists and others about the Bureau working with Twitter and Facebook to censor speech. Mr. Ray's cavalier treatment of Congress' legitimate oversight responsibilities is doing nothing to restore trust. Senator Grassley has been doing oversight a long time, and isn't known for going out on a limb. Representative Comer heads a House committee with subpoena power. They aren't happy with the FBI. Judging by the contradictory information coming out of Monday's meeting on Capitol Hill, the FBI hasn't helped itself with a briefing that raised more questions than it answered. Hunter's laptop all over again. The House Oversight Committee seeks an FBI document alleging Joe Biden took a bribe, and the effort to discredit the claim is already underway. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer subpoenaed a Federal Bureau of Investigation form he says outlines details of a $5 million bribe allegedly paid to Joe Biden while he was vice president. Until last week, the FBI wouldn't even Kevin McCarthy has a rare quality for a Republican House Speaker. Among the various reassessments of Kevin McCarthy following his successful debt ceiling negotiations, the one with the widest implications belongs to Matthew Continetti, who writes in the Washington Free Beacon that McCarthy's superpower is his desire to be Speaker. He likes and wants his job. If you hadn't followed American politics across the last few decades, this would seem like a peculiar statement. What kind of House Speaker wouldn't want the job? But part of what's gone wrong with American institutions lately is the failure of important figures to regard their positions as ends unto themselves. Congress, especially, has been overtaken by what Yuval Levin of the American Enterprise Institute describes as a platform mentality, where ambitious House members and senators treat their offices as places to stand and be seen, as talking heads, movement leaders, future presidents, rather than as roles to inhabit and opportunities to serve. On the Republican side, this tendency has taken several forms, from Newt Gingrich's yearning to be a great man of history, to Ted Cruz's ambitious grandstanding in the Obama years, to the emergence of Trump-era performance artists like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the party's congressional institutionalists, from dealmakers like John Boehner to policy mavens like Paul Ryan, have often been miserable-seeming prisoners of the talking heads, celebrity brands and would-be presidents. This dynamic seemed likely to imprison McCarthy as well, but he's found a different way of dealing with it. He's invited some of the bomb throwers into the legislative process, trying to turn them from platform seekers into legislators by giving them a stake in governance, and so far he's been rewarded with crucial support from figures like Greene and Thomas Massie, the quirky Kentucky libertarian. And it's clear that part of what makes this possible is McCarthy's enthusiasm for the actual vote counting, hand-holding work required of his position, and his lack of both Gingrichian egomania and get-me-out-of-here impatience. But McCarthy isn't operating in a vacuum. The Biden era has been good for institutionalism generally, because the president himself seems to understand and appreciate the nature of his office more than Barack Obama ever did. As my colleague Carlos Lozada noted on our podcast this week, in both the Senate and the White House, Obama was filled with palpable impatience at all the limitations on his actions.